That way, that's very clear. A potato is not the moror. So that's clearly bor priadoma. And then later on, you make the achilas moror. That's not going to be, so that's lafuke nafshe meplukta. He didn't want to get involved in this machlokas between Rav and Rav Chisda. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Mi shein lo yirakos chutz mi moror. If you only have romaine lettuce for your karpas, yivarch alav gam betibul rishon. At the time of karpas, when you dip the first time, you say bor priadoma ve'al achilas moror. And of a tibul sheni yitbelu k'becharoises v'yochlenu b'lo bracha. And then when it comes to the moror eating, you dip it in charoses, shake it off, and you eat it without a bracha. However, l'chatchila kol noyagim kravacha b'rei rava u'machazrim l'tivul rishon limtso yerek she'ena moror. People make sure that the vegetable that they find for karpas is a non-moror vegetable. They don't use romaine lettuce. They don't use horseradish. V'noyagim l'ishtamesh bekarpas, which is a celery. Yesh b'shtamshim b'tapuach adama b'botzel. Some people use potato, and some people use onion. Ravina. Back to the Gemara. This is what Hillel said, based on tradition. People should not wrap matzah and moror and eat them together. Matzah today is still doraisa. Moror today is only rabbanon. If you're going to eat the moror and the matzah together, osi moror rabbanon vatalei lematzah doraisa. The moror is going to be mavatal the taste of the matzah. So the rabbinic moror is going to detract from the doraisa de matzah. Even according to the opinion that one mitzvah does not nullify another mitzvah, that's hanimila doraisa b'doraisa d'rabbana b'drabbana. That's if you have two doraisa mitzvahs or two rabbinic mitzvahs. Then there's no bittul. Alva b'doraisa d'rabbana, nasi d'rabbana, v'atel doraisa. But everybody holds that if you mix a doraisa and d'rabbana mitzvah, the rabbinic part will be mavatal the doraisa part. So mantana b'shamis le'mitzvah same mavatal zuetzu.
Does that have to do with the taste? It seemed to imply the taste. Yeah. Nothing to do with that's only mavatal with the taste. But if it didn't, if you have the
tam matzah, the rice, the tam.
Yeah.
So who is the man d'Omar who says that mitzvahs don't mavatal one another? Hillel. The Tanya, Amar Laval Hillel, Shayakorcha b'vasachas v'oichlon. In fact, the Hillel sandwich. Hillel would make a sandwich with the Korban Pesach and the matzah and the moror, and we just use the matzah and moror today. How come they're not mavatal each other? Each one is its own mitzvah, because he holds mitzvahs d'oraisa are not mavatal each other. And he held you have to eat them together. Shenemar amatzah sumroim yochlu. You should eat it together with matzah and moror. However, on Rav Yechon cholken alav chaver v'al Hillel, the Chachamim argued with Hillel. They felt that you should not mix them together because one is going to be mavatal the other. The Tanya Yachol Yekorchem Vasachas V'Techshel Oichlon Tamadam Matzah Tzemorem Yachlu Afilu Zebif Neatzma V'Zebif Neatzma. Now that's a little strange. What is this afilu b'fnei? That doesn't make any sense. This is what the response means. I might think that you would not be yotze your mitzvah of matzah and moror unless you actually ate them together. Each one can be eaten on its own. Now, the Gemara did not finalize and say how they paskin. They didn't say do they paskin like Hillel that mitzvahs are not mavatal each other. We don't have a psak like the Rabbanon. Therefore, to be yotze all shitas, and this is how we handle ourselves during the Seder. Right? First, we make the bracha on matzah and you eat it. Then you make the bracha on moror. Then you mix the matzah and the lettuce together without a bracha. Zecher l'mikdash kehilel, which in fact is our halacha. We use the bottom matzah to make the hillel sandwich, and we eat that below bracha. So we're going to dip the karpas in salt water. So therefore, water is one of the mashkim that can be metame your yadayim. And the mashke, if your hands were tam and you touch mashke, your hands are like a sheni, but they make a din that becomes like a rishon, and then that will be metame food. So anytime you're going to eat something that you dip in a mashke, tzarich netilas yadayim. That's why we do netilas yadayim before we eat karpas. So the Shulchan Aruch ha'oichel davar shenoagim la'achlo k'sheibu b'mashke. If it's dipped in yayin, dvash, shemen, cholav, tal, dam, mayim, v'afilu ena oichel nogeh b'magam haratov, even if the person doesn't touch the wet spot, tzarich l'tol yadayim l'fanav below bracha. But this halacha is not the futza. Sherov anashim einan noigem b'netilas zu v'soim chala rishonim ha'oimim shebedorosenu ein makpidim al tar v'tumah. So therefore, most people don't necessarily wash their hands without a bracha before eating something that they dip. However, the night of the Seder, Leila Seder, Lifnei Achilas Karpas, B'tibul Rishon, Noitlin Yadai, Vein Levarch Mal Natila, V'afilu Oisam Anoshim, She'eino Agim B'chol Hashana, B'tfilas Zu, even the people who all year round do not wash their hands, we're not talking about for bread, we're talking about for eating something that is dipped. Why? Again, it's another one of these maneuvers to get the children to ask questions. That the charoises later on, the moror, we have to dip it in charoises to take away the venom. Like onions have very makes you cry. So it's clear that it's going to be dipped. Because if you didn't have to dip it, it says I'm lamali. So why would you need not in the yadayim? Aloy naga. I vidil malay ma'im l'chaloy tzarach l'shkuyei. The kappa merecha mayas. You don't have to dip it. There's no raya that you have to dip it. The venom of these morors, etc., the wind will cause it to go away. So elamalina tilis yadayim, because dilma mashkulum, you might come to dip it. You don't have to dip it, but you might come to dip it, and then dip it without when it is a time would cause tumah. Don't leave too much charoises on the mortar when you dip it, because the charoises is sweet and it'll take away the bitterness of the mortar. And if you've removed the bitterness of the mortar, then you have not fulfilled the mitzvah of mortar. Chisda told Rav Una to Darash, not tell Yadav Betibul Risha. You did Netilas Yadayim before Karpas, not tell Yadav Betibul Sheni. You have to make
they say the kappa is like a little bug or something. So you dip that in the charosis, it kills it.
Kappa is like the bitterness and the venom.
But here, so it's not a bug.
It's not a bug. Eres.
It's not a bug.
Eres is a venom. It's a chemical. That's in the chazer. Shastrav shebechazeres yesh bo eres kederech haba. It's like onions. When you cut onions, you start crying. That's because there's something in the onion that makes you. Okay.
Okay, so now,
So after the first natil, they have to make a second natil sedai. Like we do. Amru Rabbanan Kamed Rav Papa. Hai ba'alma itmar. We know this is a general rule. It's not just by Pesach. These Haggadah Chacha Ikmar. Why dafka by Pesach? Lamalina Tizdaim Trei Zimni. Why would you need a second? You already washed your hands. Because if this din of two natil sedaims is by regular days, lamali trade. If there's certainly we should ask the question: why do you need two teeth? Once you washed your hands once, why have to do it again? In fact, that's the question. Why do we do two natil sedaims? You washed your hands once. Amri kivin de boy lememar garatav alela. You have to say magid. And you have to say the first part of Hallel in between these two washings. If you could hold cup after the first washing and wash your hands and be showing me your hands, then you might get away. But since we're going to say Hallel and Magid, you need to do a second Nitil Sedayim before matzah there. Amar Rav Bolo matzah yotza. A person just swallowed the matzah without chewing it. You're yoitze because achila it is. L'chatchila you want the tam matzah as well, but you don't need it. Therefore, bola matzah yotza. Bola more lo yotza. There you need the tam more mi'ikaradin, and you don't have it if you don't chew it. If you just swallow it, you're not yoitze matzah. However, bola matzah umoror, let's say you swallowed matzah more together, yidei matzah yotza, yidei more lo yotza. Like we said before, you don't need to taste the matzah, you need to taste the more. Karchan besiv uvlon. Let's say you wrapped the matzah, the more, in like a cellophane and swallowed it. So therefore it never comes in contact with your digestive tract. Afidei matzah nami lo yotza, because your digestive tract was not nene from the matzah. Arasimi barashi matzah lifnei kolecha vecha. Matzahs have to be put in front of each person. Mora lifnei kolecha vecha. V'charoisas lifnei kolecha vecha. That's why each person gets a seder plate. But at certain point, we're going to remove the shulchan, right? We say the halach ma'anya. We take the seder plate off the table. We put it back on the table. All of this is for heker latinoikis. It's all to arouse the curiosity of the children. But that action only has to be done in front of the person who's saying the Agoda. However, and it has all these things, the matzah, the moral choices, also has to be in front of the person who's saying the magid. And then he distributes it to the other people. So it says, the Shulchan Aruch says, the ka'ara, she'aleh kol aminim atzrichin lepesach levin lefnei balabayis, ve'in tzrech laniach k'moken lefnei kol ha'mesubim. You don't have to put a ka'ara in front of each person. If you put it in front of the balabayis, that's enough. And he distributes all the things. Some people are annoyed to do it, but you can. And then after the halach maniyah is when you remove the shulchan, you remove the seder plate. Some people put it over in the corner. Some people remove it completely. Lama oikris shulchan. The Gemara asks, why do you move these? So that the children are encouraged to ask. Abai Avi Yosef Kamei de Rabba. Abai used to have the Seder in front of Rabba when he was a child. Chazad Komadli Takama Kamei. He saw him remove the car. Amarlu Adayin Lo Kach Lilna. How come they're removing the table? We haven't even eaten yet. Also, Kamakri Takami Kamon. Amarle Rabba. You know what? Taros and Maloimer Manishtana. We don't even have to ask the Manishtana. You already recognize that there's a difference. This potters us from saying the Manishtana. You asked the question about the Shinui. Amar Shmuel, Lechem Oni Ksiv. Ksiv Lechem Shorim Alav Dvarim Harbe. The word Oni means not just poor man's bread. It means bread that a lot of things were said over it. Like the Haggadah. Tainamachi, Lechem Oni. Lechem Shorim Alav Dvarim Harbe. Davar Acher Lechem Oni. Oni Ksiv. It's written Oni, poor person. Ma Oni Shadaku B'Prusa. That means Ani doesn't use a whole matzah. He uses like a half a matzah. So that's why we break the middle matzah, because an Ani uses a prusa. Minig Yisrael, lakachat shalosh mitzvos l'seder, v'samatzah emtsois boitzim, the middle matzah you break, was manachila boitzim min hashlema ha'elyona. When you eat the matzah, you also break the top one for hamotzi, and from the prusam. That means when you make hamotzi, you hold the top one and the middle one together for the hamotzi. And then, so you see the prusa is very important to be involved in all the brachas. Okay. We'll call back in at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
10 minutes.
If a person